Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Perfect Gentleman podcast. This is episode 76, and for the first time in our new series, alongside me is the dapper, the congenial, the wonderful, the gentlemanly Mr. James Marwood. Hello, James.
Hello, Zach. It is so good to be back. So
It is good to be back. It is good to be back. It's good for us to be back as well.
Absolutely. You know, it's summertime, lockdown's ending, we're able to go out and we're back podcasting, which is fantastic, and back being able to talk together. We talk together anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we talked together pretty much all the way through the lockdown,
True.
which we can talk about anyway. But but it's nice to be back. I thought, we should get back and videoing. Ooh, this sort of the
I know, it's scary, isn't it? It's I've had to make sure that I spend most of my life on video conferences, but it adds an extra dimension of having to think. I can't just drift off and think and try and work out what I'm going to say. I have to be engaged.
Yes, you have to focus and think and focus.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And yes, I got up and put the clothes on today because we're recording this on a Sunday, so not our usual. So I usually record on a Friday, but recording this on a Sunday. So I got up this morning. I was like, oh, I actually have to get dressed. Oh gosh, okay, right, yeah.
Yes.
I have to put a shirt on and.
Yes, put a shirt on and yeah, I had to. Normally, my Sunday mornings are very brunch related, but I've been working this morning anyway, and then doing this. So yeah, it's busy time.
So, episode 76. We're back podcasting. So let's start having a chat. James, you probably talked about it on your sort of podcast, which I haven't listened to yet. But what have you been up to?
Well, it's all been changed. So I've moved back to London since last we spoke. So I'm now in South London, Southeast London, just near Crystal Palace. It's very nice. It's very different to a little village in Durham, but it's good to be back in London. The place is a lot smaller, as you can see, since my office is in my living room, but it works. I'm very busy with work. Same job as before, but new clients. We've grown quite a bit. I'm doing what's probably the biggest project I've ever done.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it is slightly intimidatingly large. In fact, I was told the other day that it is apparently the largest digital transformation in Europe currently.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only a very small part of it. There's hundreds of people working on it, but it's good. It's fun. Really enjoying it.
No pressure then. No pressure at all.
No pressure at all. No. It's not like it's monstrously critical or anything, but they're the fun ones. That's the what we say in boxing, and they're the championship rounds.
Exactly.
They're the ones where you win. And then been locked down for the best part of.
And how has lockdown been for you?
For me, it's been. I've been quite fortunate. I mean, it's been tricky at times, but I've had. I work with a business, and the job I do is largely remote anyway. So I'm quite fortunate in that I'm able to work from home without a lot of interruption. I've got the camera and the microphone and things, so that's made it easier. I've got space to have a desk in a dedicated work area that a lot of people don't have. But it's been interesting for me to watch, actually, because what my other half has a grown-up son. He drives a delivery bike, so when you order your fast food and delivery and that sort of thing, he's one of those chaps on a moped that comes and brings it to you. And he's worked right the way through without stopping, been busier than I think he's ever been. I've been busier than I've ever been, but some other of my friends have been really struggling. I've got friends in the theatre, entertainment, restaurant businesses, things like that. They found it really hard. Friends who work in oil and gas, really hard. So I've been very lucky. And I've actually, dare I say, enjoyed parts of it, as terrible as that sounds. But yeah, I've not missed all the travelling.
Yes, I think that's the really interesting thing, isn't it? I think it's a really interesting thing about not missing commuting, not missing traveling, not missing the forced interactions. So like
Yes.
having to go in for a meeting where you're kind of going, well, actually, there's no point. I could do it in 30 seconds on a call, and
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing. But yes, the traveling, the journeys into the city centres have been, curtailed. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw it, the fantastic article. I think it was on the BBC News, where it was Canary Wharf Group basically saying everyone wants to come back to work, and then there was 800 comments of basically everyone going, no.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, there is a bit of there's a couple of quite interesting nuances to that, I think. So some of the chaps in my line of business who often like to be provocative on social media have advanced the argument that it's mostly people who need to see all their guys around them to feel important, who want people to come back into the office. And there's probably a little bit of that, but it is, I think, just a little bit more. Jerry, I mean, I know with my company, as soon as we were able to, we opened up co-working. So we no longer have a physical office. We were looking to move on from that anyway, because we don't need a fixed office. What we need is meeting space and lecture space, because we do a lot of training. So we made the move to that. But as soon as we could do it, we opened up co-working spaces for anybody who wants to come to any of our team, and the overwhelming majority who took that up were younger people. So our 20-something, 30-something consultants, because they've been, in many cases, sat in exactly the same four walls, working, living, sleeping for the best part of, for more than a year. And so you can understand why those guys want to come back in. And also, for some of the work we do, I did a couple of YouTube videos on this separately, but it's the idea that to develop and grow, you need to be able to see how other people operate and see how they do and learn from them. And doing that over a video link is tricky, especially when that video link maybe doesn't actually even have video.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes it tricky. So I can see both ways. I've enjoyed. I can do good work from home. It's easy for me. The nature of the work I do, I'm very fortunate. For those who can't, really tough. And for those who don't have the infrastructure to support that, or the experience to support it, even tougher. So yeah, I can see both sides of it.
I can see both sides of it too, and I think you're right. I think it's a younger person thing, going into the office and meeting people and that sort of social thing. With the slightly older generation, like, I don't have to commute. I can stay at home and work.
Yes, absolutely. I can have 2 hours back a day. Yeah. Although there is an interesting thing that the other side of it, and this is something I have found, is if I was in the office, I would be having that 2-hour commute, which is generally, if I'm able to manage my commute okay, not have to be on a really cramped train, reading time. I'd be having breaks. I'd probably be wandering around and talking to some of my colleagues, doing things like that. So I feel like I'm working a lot more when I'm at home, and it is that phrase about living at work.
Yeah,
It doesn't have that natural stop work, start doing non-work stuff, which is always a little bit artificial anyway. But
yeah, I think it is, but it's also interesting. I mean, especially the number of people I've spoken to, especially parents, the flexibility to sort of drop off the kids, then sort of jump back onto work, or have to deal with like a kid emergency and not have to feel that, oh my god, I can't, I've got to leave work to do it. I can just go drop off in half an hour, deal with that, come back on, I'll work a little bit later. I think there's a little bit more flexibility to our time, and I certainly, I mean, I don't have a fixed schedule. I mean, I don't have a 9 to 5 thing, but I can go off and go, okay, I need to run this errand now. I'll run it now when I can do it on a Tuesday. Whereas before it'd be like, oh, I have to do it on a Saturday with everyone else doing it. It's sort of spread out a week.
Yeah. And there is a challenge for employees and for managers. And actually, this is where I think those of us in knowledge work industries can learn a lot from more traditional industries. So knowledge work being you take information and add value to it through your skills, knowledge, and experience, or you work inside, have soft hands, and choose when you can go to lunch.
Yes.
So often, so the real difficulty for managers is in those sorts of areas. I think is managing people by outcome. So you put inputs in to a piece of work. So you put some time and you put some people and you put some information and some tools, and something comes out the other end. And if what comes out the other end is what you're looking for, great. But that's actually quite hard to manage, because you need to understand what that thing that comes at the other end should look like, and how to be able to say that's not how it should have been, or whatever. And so what a lot of managers have been used to doing is managing by presenteeism, or bums on seats. So if somebody is, I had this at I had a very senior manager at a bank, a big UK bank, and I had a team there doing work, and James says, I'm concerned your team aren't working very hard. Right? Okay. We're hitting all our milestones, we're ahead, I'm confused why there's a challenge, let's have a talk about it. And when we dug into it, her problem was that they didn't have notebooks on their desks, like physical paper notebooks. I thought, well, these are mostly guys in their 20s, they're doing digital work, they're driving code and process maps and digital documents, so yeah, they work off whiteboards and computers. I'd feel much more comfortable if they were working with notebooks. Okay, so I went and got them notebooks and pens, and they put them on their desks. And every morning I would put the notebooks and pens on their desks, and then they would ignore them. But this manager, she was not comfortable with managing by output. She wanted to see what she thought work looked like. And I think for a lot of managers,
I just love the invention of some notebooks on the desk. It's not open, the pen is there, but it's like, oh, I'm happy now. There's a notebook on the desk.
Well, what I would do is I would take a box of Bics and a box of notebooks, and I would take the notebook and I'd open it up and put the pen on top of it and put it on their desk and just leave it there. And I would probably handle that differently now, but at the time that was how I managed it. And I suspect that a lot of those who are saying everybody's got to go back to work, and all my guys are coming back 5 days a week, are in that school where they just don't have the comfort and the processes and the knowledge of their actual business to be able to look at, are we doing the right things or are we not?
I think there's that, and I think there's a lot of big office block companies going, holy crap, we're going to lose loads of revenue and that's all loads of things. Well, the world changes. The world changes.
It does. And I mean, and I feel for those people who are used, who rely on that sort of income, and let's not forget that all of our, especially in the UK, and this will be the case in a lot of countries, but who are the people who invest in those big property schemes and commercial real estate and things like that?
Companies.
It's not really billionaires or get rich quick merchants. It's pension companies.
Yeah.
So it's our pensions, it's our parents' pensions, it's those things. There is a real worry there, but we can do things a lot better. We don't need to be crammed into a train. Pre-COVID, I'd be going into a train and literally there'd be more than once I've seen physical fights about people trying to push onto trains that there just aren't room, and people panicking because they've got to get to the office in time, or they've got to get to school or college on time, and crammed in like sardines in a thousands of trains an hour hurtling through South London. And that's repeated in cities all over the world. We don't need to do that anymore. Not to the same degree.
Not to the same degree. No, I totally agree. And I think there is a shift. It's an interesting one. and I think we're only at the beginning of it. I think we will. I think it's been long enough to have the shift have impact. Now we'll just see what happens. I think that's the other thing. But I have a wing.
You have a wing.
I have a wing. For those of you who don't know what a wing is, this is a wing, and a wing is named after the lovely Nick Wing, who was the original co-founder of Me of the Perfect Gentleman. And whenever he used to want to say something but didn't want to interrupt the flow of someone else, he would cross his fingers like that, tap it on the floor or tap it on his shoulder or his leg, and to remind himself that when there was a gap in the conversation, he could speak. So this is my wing, and we're trying to promote the wing to make polite conversation.
I used to wing all the time. Yeah, big fan.
Big fan of the wing. Anyway, so my wing was, I just thought, when you were talking earlier about sort of watching people, learning by watching around someone. I'm just thinking now there's going to be work Twitch streams. So there's a Twitch stream of James working, and James is just sitting there going, do phone call, and there's some thousands of people around the world going, James is taking a phone call. Excellent. Let's watch.
It's funny you should say that, because I mean, I can't do that because of the nature of the work I do. It's largely public sector and secure. I think if I started Twitch streaming some of my phone calls, I'd have some very uncomfortable questions to answer. Slowly start seeing Iran and China and Russia filling up all of my watch figures. Yeah, no, we'll not do that. But there's a number of people who do exactly that kind of thing. On Twitch and on YouTube, but generally people in the productivity space. And I think we've talked before. A lot of it, I think, that productivity stuff is a little bit of a racket.
Yeah,
but there is also some really good stuff in there. So there's a really interesting guy called Ali Abdal.
I follow him.
Yeah, Ali's great. I'm very jealous of his desk and monitor, basically. But the he does these sort of work along sessions, which are quite useful, and I've seen people do that. And even going further back, the David Allen Company used to do these guided weekly review sessions, where you would get sometimes 50, 60 people all online or following along via Twitter and doing a weekly review, and they were doing it to sell their product and demonstrate the thing.
Yeah.
But it is useful, and especially if you're working at home, can be really, really stressful. Mm-hmm. It can be difficult if you're not fully in control of what you're doing, and it's not just you that decides it, to know what you should be doing. So that drives procrastination. Being at home can be distracting.
Yeah.
That drives procrastination. And so it's quite useful to, for example, one of the techniques that you'll have heard of this, the Pomodoro technique.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big Pomodoro fan.
Yeah, so, I mean, the whole idea of the Pomodoro technique comes from little tomato timers.
Yeah, timers, yeah.
Yeah, so you do, people do it different ways. I think 10 minutes and 5 was the...
10 minutes 5 was the original, and then it became 25 and 5.
Yeah.
Is the original. I actually weirdly do 45-15. So I work for 45 and take a 15-minute break. That's my Pomodoro thing. So I kind of get enough done in 45 minutes. So I've always found that 25 minutes, I just get started into the flow, and then it would be the 5-minute break, and I'll be like...
It depends a lot on the work that you're doing. There's we can talk about this at another time, but this whole concept of maker's time, manager's time. What's the minimum useful block of time for you? For some jobs, it's 5 minutes. For some jobs, it's an hour. Some jobs, it's probably more like 6 hours. I mean, that's why I use this a lot. So my
timer. Yeah.
Yeah, so just a stand timer, and I sometimes use this with my team and say, you have got half an hour. Or I will take up no more than half an hour of your time, but also I use that when I'm working. Things like that can be really useful in that sort of work along, and work alongside each other. So I have used that with some of my guys and some of my colleagues, where we work together in little mini sprints like that. Even though we're not doing the same job, we don't need to be talking to each other. We're just We just
Just
have
to
the
see each
connection
other
open.
on camera.
Yeah, just get your little screen, or you've got you can just type away. And sometimes even just hearing that noise of somebody else typing just feels a little bit more connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there we go. We've solved the work crisis. Now move on.
Yes.
So do you like the new format? What we've done, James, with the podcast? So we're not seeing. I mean, I know it was partly because we couldn't physically do it.
Yeah. It is. There's a couple of challenges I have, which make it so. As you see, small flat.
Yeah.
You can't hear how accurate it is because Dre, our tech wizard, is going to do some magic to fix all my deficiencies and help me look good. Thanks, Dre.
That's filters. That's called filters. That's he uses those for us all the time.
Yeah. But actually, I really enjoy it. I like it, and I think the time amount is probably just right, and it stops me rambling too much. And also, but it's quite nice for it's just the right length, for example, to listen to while I'm grabbing my lunch or I'm walking to the shop or I'm going to post a letter or whatever, which is kind of what I like with my podcasts. I listen to some others that are sometimes 2 hours long and they're great, but I've got to schedule them.
Yeah, well, I've now, because you've taken up as well, because I love long distance walking. My long podcast is long distance walking. So when I get the hour podcast in, the earphones get in, and because I'm walking for 12 hours or something like that, then
I can't do your long distances, Zach, but I'm getting better. All being well, if the weather behaves, it'll be 10 miles today. So.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm now in kilometres because all the challenges are in kilometres.
Right, okay.
So bizarrely, my head's in kilometres for the challenges. So I can calculate it backwards. But so I'm doing 20. So after this call, I'm doing 27 kilometres, which is what? That'll be 15, 16 miles, something like that.
Yeah, probably. That's a lot.
Yeah, 16 miles today. And then next weekend, I'm actually doing 100 kilometres over 2 days. So.
Blimey. That is
66 miles over 2 days. So, in the Cotswolds, which would be lovely. Hopefully, the weather.
That is lovely, but a little bit hilly in places.
A little bit hilly in places, but it's not as bad as the one I did last year, where the last 3 kilometres was up Box Hill in Surrey, which is basically a hill like this. If you don't know it in England, it's basically an almost vertical hill. And that was in the last. We'd done 50 kilometres at this point, and the last three were up this Box Hill. I was cursing. I was using very impolite language as I was climbing this hill.
That's just bad planning. Start with the downhills.
Anyways, let's move on to something else. Let's talk about our gentlemanly news this week. I have 3 articles for our gentlemanly news this week. I'm going to save the most controversial article for last. But what was interesting, the first one I thought was interesting, following on from our working at home thing, is that research, and I'm just trying to find where it is. Research from Trend Analytics, the intelligence company, June 2021 reports saying that men are increasing tailored apparel and casual suiting. It's up 86% since last year. So as the lockdown is lifting a bit, people are starting to back into the tailored clothing. I mean, not that I have ever stopped wearing tailored clothing, but I think it's really interesting that it's coming back. I think, people have gone, oh, hang on a second, we've had, 14, 15, 16 months of basically taking classes in our pajamas or listening to stuff in our pajamas, and then I think there's a shift going, actually, I want to wear a suit, or I want to wear something a bit more formal. Well, how's your sartorial elegance been over the lockdown period, Jim?
Well, I have been pretty casual. Although you can do casual and still look, respectable. So I've been leaning a lot more on things like polo shirts, pop-over shirts, those sorts of things. Linen, especially as it's got hot. I love linen anyway. But I wasn't into a meeting Thursday, and I went full suit and polished my shoes and got my best tie and pocket square on, and it was great. Felt really good to be back in the saddle, as it were. And I'm doing that again next week. Got a couple of days in visiting clients. So I think there's probably two parts. One is maybe three, because some of us, those who are more like me and probably a little bit less like you, Zach, have put a lot of weight on over lockdown.
And put a fair bit on. I've put a fair bit on. I put 9 kilos on lockdown, so I'm starting to lose it now. So, but
okay, yeah, I'm about to say, but losing it more slowly. I should probably go walking with you, but. So those of us who've put weight on are probably having to buy stuff to fit into that we weren't able to last time, but that's by the by. I think also, that going back to work and enjoying the feeling, because nothing feels as good as a good suit, as we know. But also, it was interesting, the casual tailoring idea, which is something that people like Simon Compton at Permanent Style have been talking about for a long time, but mixing tailoring with more casual elements. So you're not always thinking suit means traditional suit tie, pocket square, etc. But you are thinking, actually, it means I can have a tailored jacket with a polo shirt, or maybe even a t-shirt, or I can wear take some of those principles of tailoring. And actually, I was looking at my love-hate relationship with GQ.
My hate relationship with GQ. I'm sorry.
I mean, I doubt they couldn't care less what I think. But but what was really interesting was looking at some of the things they were suggesting for their summer suits, and some of these are really nice, deconstructed, sort of more casual suits in more casual cloth. In fact, there's a fantastic one that they're recommending by Lemaire. Probably not even slightly practical, but I love it because it's sort of lemony yellow, crinkled silk, double-breasted suit, very deconstructed suit cut, which means very little padding, very little sort of harnessing inside the suit, so it fits more like a cardigan, and with what looks like the sort of belt you would have on your dressing gown. And it sounds like it should be awful, but it looks fantastic. I really, really like it. It's ridiculously expensive, of course. It's 1,500 quid for an off, or 1,400 quid for an off the rack suit, but somebody will wear it and look great. And I will cheer them on.
See, the interesting thing is, okay, so it's a 1,500 quid for off the rack suit. I'm pretty sure we could, in a few months' time, you'll find, or next season, you'll find one in probably Zara or Massimo Dutti or something for less than half the price.
Oh, absolutely, and that'll be great. And to be fair, for some people, £1,500 is fine. For some people, it's not. But one of the things that is something to watch for a little bit with some of these summer suits is some of them can be a little bit crazy, and they can be a bit fashion forward, which means you don't always get the same wear out of them. But some of those same ideas, like you could look at that Lemaire suit, which is very out there, but what are the principles you could take for that, for something you could wear more often, more regularly, for a few years? It's that slightly boxier, more breezy cut.
Yeah.
A bit more like an American sack suit than an English or Italian suit. You can take the deconstructed nature of it, so the less padding, which means it's cooler, which makes it easier to wear, and the fact that the colour is a bit lighter and more to be normal. Now, if you were to move that up a couple of tones and have it slightly more, slightly darker, a slightly less flamboyant cut, and took the belt off it, that would be a year-round suit that you could wear in the office on anything but the most formal days.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that is absolutely the sorts of things we should be looking at and saying, let's go for it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's a good idea to look at stuff like that. I'm as you well know, I'm a big fan of seersucker, so I love the summer because the seersucker comes out.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for the. So you'll, if you follow us on TikTok, because we've started our TikTok journey, and Instagram, you will see a couple of opening videos, and it'll be on the next podcast. Yeah, the next podcast, episode 77. I will be doing a unboxing of I ordered a bunch of summer suits and summer jackets from some, lower not as expensive retailers to see what they do. So we'll see what happens, and I'm going to unbox them, and so you can see that and see what I fit. I've got a linen one from Moss Bros, 3-piece linen one from Moss Bros. I've got seersucker from Samuel Windsor.
Okay, not a brand I know very well.
No. And I was looking at sort of low, and then I've tried a new one which I discovered called Hockety, which is a sort of Chinese, they send you do all your own measurement, send it off to China and see what happens. It's a reasonable price, not too bad. We'll see what that is, another 3-piece suit. So that's supposed to be delivered at the end of June. So hopefully I won't do that till we're into July for that unboxing.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah, it would be really interesting, and you'll see it on the podcast. The second, but bizarrely, just to let you know, I've been wearing suits the entire time because I've been lecturing so much, and of course, brand is always paramount in my head, so I've just been wearing a suit pretty much the entire time. My life hasn't changed that much, and it's very funny. The students going, "But sir, why are you dressed or every time like this?" I'm like, "Well, it's work." And they're like, "But you're at home." Well, okay, just because you're in your pajamas doesn't mean that I should be in my pajamas.
Absolutely, it's there's I think it's also it's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I pushed a lot of my guys to do, and that I do, is I get up, get ready, put my work clothes on, and start work. Now, my work clothes might be more casual than they would be otherwise, but that mindset shift is important.
Shower, shave, dressed, get in the desk. That's the way. My last piece of news, because we're going to run over otherwise. My last piece of news, which I wanted to talk about, which is interesting, a little bit controversial, maybe, is mask etiquette. So we're going to develop new etiquette. It's very rare. It is very rare that new etiquette comes along in such a dramatic fashion. So etiquette usually develops over time. But mask etiquette, interesting. The article, which was in some Massachusetts paper, which was interesting, but it sort of got picked up across a number of American, local online newspapers, is, what's the correct mask etiquette? And I was thinking about this. I mean, that's an interesting thought process, isn't it? What is the correct mask etiquette for the modern world? Because the masks are going to be with us now, I think, for the foreseeable future, kind of like they are in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
And Asia. Do you have any thoughts, James?
Well, I mean, I would probably go back to, as I tend to with this sort of thing, first principles.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of etiquette? What are we trying to do? What are we aiming to? It's to make other people around us feel comfortable and at ease. So we are thinking about this. We are confident enough in our own worth, in our own value, that we can allow others to also be comfortable and be made to feel better by our presence. So to that end, I would err on the side of wearing a mask. There are places where it is pretty much mandated.
Yeah.
In public transport, shops, that sort of thing. If you're taking a taxi, or you're in a restaurant and you're not sat at your table, those are places where in the UK at least you need to wear a mask, and it's only right that you should do. There are places where it's a little bit less clear, so when you're walking around outside, I tend not to. I think on the balance of risk, I think if you're outside and there's lots of air moving around and the fresh air, that seems to me like a lower risk option based on what I read. So I don't wear a mask then. I think that's perfectly fine. But if I were moving in amongst, so I'll give you an example. When I was walking last week, I walked through. I walked down Leather Lane Market in London, just up from Holborn. Those who know London, it's quite a narrow street. It's a market. It was quite busy. So as I came out of High Holborn, that was quite wide and open, not very busy, and into the market, put my mask on, moved through the crowd. Now that's partly to protect me, but more to protect others, and also to show visibly that I'm caring about other people's safety. That could be construed as virtue signalling, and I've never quite got to the bottom of what's bad about virtue signalling, if I'm honest. But also, there is that I'm visibly putting others at their ease.
Yes.
So, and I think that matters. My other half found it really difficult the first time we went out after lockdown, and we were going to go into a restaurant in the city of London, because of how many people were unmasked and moving around, and it made her nervous and she wasn't comfortable. So we ended up bailing on the restaurant and going for a picnic. Now there'll be lots of people like that who are nervous, and if I can put them slightly at their ease by putting a mask on, fine, I have no problem with doing it. It protects me as well. It protects them. I would wonder, there is not a polite and thoughtful way to say, I don't want to wear a mask because I don't care about you.
No, exactly. And I think that's very true. I would completely concur with that. I mean, it's exactly like you. If I walk in a place where there's lots and lots of people, I'll put a mask on. If I'm outdoors, as you do, I do a lot of long distance walking. I don't tend to wear a mask then unless I'm walking through, a large group of people. Then I'll put outside, that is, I'll put a mask on. Or I'm standing in a queue. I tend to find that when an outdoor queue, I'll put the mask on when I join the queue and that sort of thing. Just out of, again, that sort of, I'm not just protecting myself, but I'm actually saying I'm thinking about the others around me. And to be honest, I don't mind wearing the mask. It doesn't bother me that much. I'm not as fussed about it. I mean, I don't. We wear a seatbelt for our safety. I equate it to that. It's like it's mandatory. It's law now, but we wear a seatbelt for our safety and the safety of others. Right? That's why we wear a seatbelt. So. It's the same principle with a mask. It's wearing it for the safety of yourself and the safety of others, and that's kind of the underlying principle. I have to say though, I'm very happy that masks have become better and better and better and more colourful, and not just the horrible paper or black ones that everyone seemed to be wearing at the beginning. I've definitely gone down the trend of trying to match the mask colour to my outfit. And as you know, I always try and do that. And I did notice the other day that our lovely friends at Cravat Club, this is not a sponsored post in any way, shape or form, but they are very good friends of ours. Cravat Club have started matching their cravats and masks. And I'm like, good on you. That makes me very happy.
Fantastic. I did actually, another, not at all sponsored, but quite early on in lockdown, I bought some fantastic masks from Johann at Sharp and Dapper.
Oh.
And they are great, and I get so many compliments on that. There's one which is a colourful yellow, red, and blue stripe. It's a vertical stripe. I get so many compliments on that one, and I love it. So.
Yeah. So yes, Sharp and Dapper Cravat Club. If you want sort of gentlemanly masks, they're a good starting point.
And I think it's one of the reasons why we wear pocket squares and we wear ties is because it lets you put a flash and a pop of colour. As chaps, we get very little opportunity to mess about with brightly coloured silk. So a mask is another one.
Exactly. Colourful masks. It's going back to that day of being the almost back to the 17th century now. You know about that.
Yes.
Anyway, we better wrap up today. James, always a pleasure to speak to you, my friend.
and you, Zach. This was really good fun. I'm really glad to be back talking to you on a podcast.
And I'll see you in four episodes. We'll be back together again.
4 episodes. Yes.
4 episodes down. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching us on YouTube, please do click the like and the subscribe button. We want to get our subscription up. We want to make the world a more gentlemanly, stylish, and respectful place, and we hope that you do too. Also, if you're listening on the podcast, please, subscribe to the podcast, share it around with your friends and family and anyone that you think needs a bit more of a gentlemanly push in their life. We would always appreciate that. And in the meantime, as we always say here at The Perfect Gentleman, let's make the world a more respectful, stylish, and gentlemanly place, even if we have to do it one man at a time. Thank you, guys. Bye.